There is an ancient story about a traveler who spent most of his life searching for success, not because he was poor, not because he was weak, but because no matter how much he achieved, he never felt satisfied. Every victory felt smaller than expected. Every accomplishment faded quickly. Every moment of happiness seemed to disappear before he could fully enjoy it. And so he continued chasing. More recognition, more possessions, more approval, more proof that he mattered. Yet the strange thing was this. The more he gained, the more lost he felt. One evening, exhausted by years of striving, he arrived at a remote village hidden between mountains. The villagers spoke often about an old teacher who lived there. Some claimed he understood the human mind better than any scholar. Others said he possessed wisdom passed down through generations. The traveler decided to visit him. When he arrived, he found the teacher sitting beneath an old tree. The teacher looked up and smiled. "You have been carrying something heavy." The traveler was surprised. "How did you know?" The teacher replied, "Because your shoulders are bent beneath a burden you cannot see." The traveler sat down. For hours he spoke. He spoke about his frustrations, his disappointments, his endless desire for more. And when he finally finished, the teacher remained silent. Then he stood. "Come with me." The traveler followed him into a small stone building. Inside was a mirror hanging on the wall. At first glance, it appeared ordinary, but as the traveler moved closer, he noticed cracks running through its surface. The teacher pointed toward it. "What do you see?" "My reflection." The teacher shook his head. "No." The traveler looked again. The cracks distorted everything. His face appeared broken, uneven, twisted. The teacher asked again, "What do you see?" This time the traveler hesitated. "A distorted image." The teacher nodded. "Exactly." Then he spoke words that would change everything. "Many people spend their entire lives looking through broken mirrors." The traveler frowned. "What does that mean?" The teacher sat beside him. "It means they judge themselves through damaged perceptions. Now listen carefully. Ancient wisdom often warned that the greatest deception is not being lied to by others. It is being lied to by yourself. Because a broken mirror never shows reality. It only shows distortion." The traveler listened closely. The teacher continued. "Some people look into a mirror cracked by fear. Others look into a mirror cracked by comparison. Others see themselves through rejection, failure, shame, childhood wounds." The traveler felt uncomfortable because he suddenly realized something. For years, he had believed he was chasing success, but perhaps he had really been chasing validation. The teacher pointed toward the mirror. "If your mirror is broken, no achievement will ever appear large enough." Those words landed heavily because the traveler knew they were true. Every accomplishment he achieved immediately became insignificant in his own eyes. Every success felt temporary. Every milestone became another starting line. The teacher then asked a question. "When will a thirsty man stop drinking from an empty cup?" The traveler replied, "When he realizes there is no water inside." The teacher smiled. "Exactly. And when will a person stop seeking worth from external approval?" The traveler remained silent because he suddenly understood. Many people spend decades searching for something the world cannot give them, a stable sense of value. The teacher stood and walked toward the door. Then he stopped. "There is something even more dangerous than a broken mirror." The traveler looked up. What could be worse? The teacher turned slowly, not knowing that it is broken. Silence filled the room, because if a person does not know their perception is distorted, they will mistake illusion for truth. And according to ancient wisdom, that is where suffering truly begins. The traveler felt a chill run through him, because for the first time in his life, he began to question whether he had ever seen himself clearly at all. And the next lesson would reveal how broken mirrors quietly control entire lives without people ever realizing it. The traveler barely slept that night. The teacher's words echoed through his mind. What is worse than a broken mirror? Not knowing that it is broken. The more he thought about it, the more unsettling it became. Because if a man cannot trust what he sees, how can he trust the conclusions he draws? The following morning, before sunrise, The teacher invited him on a walk. They climbed a narrow path leading toward the mountains. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, the traveler broke the silence. How do people know if their mirror is broken? The teacher smiled. Most don't. The traveler frowned. Then how can they fix it? The teacher stopped walking. First, they must discover the cracks. Now listen carefully. According to ancient wisdom, most people do not suffer because reality is against them. They suffer because they are interpreting reality through distortion. The teacher picked up 3 stones from the ground. Then he placed them in front of the traveler. These represent the 3 cracks that damage most mirrors. The traveler leaned closer. The teacher pointed to the first stone, fear, then the second, comparison, then the third, past wounds. The traveler studied them carefully. The teacher began. Fear is the first crack. Fear rarely shows things as they are. It shows things as they might become. The traveler nodded. The teacher continued. A fearful mind sees opportunity and imagines disaster. It sees possibility and imagines failure. It sees growth and imagines loss. Then he told a story. There were once 2 merchants given the same opportunity. One saw potential. The other saw risk. One became prosperous. The other remained stuck. The difference was not the opportunity. The difference was the lens through which they viewed it. The traveler understood immediately. For years, fear had convinced him not to attempt things he secretly wanted. The teacher nodded. Fear doesn't always stop action. Sometimes it simply shrinks vision. Those words struck deeply, because many people never realize how much of their life is being controlled by imagined disasters. The teacher then pointed to the second stone, comparison. His voice became serious. This crack has destroyed more peace than almost any other. The traveler immediately felt uncomfortable, because he knew comparison well. The teacher continued. Comparison convinces people that their value depends on where they stand relative to others. The traveler listened. The teacher pointed toward 2 mountains in the distance. One was taller. One was smaller. Does the smaller mountain become worthless because the larger one exists? Of course not. Then why do people believe that about themselves? Silence. Because the answer was obvious. Many people spend their lives measuring themselves against other people, and every comparison becomes another crack in the mirror. The teacher then revealed something surprising. The person who constantly compares will never feel rich. Even if they become wealthy, they will always find someone wealthier. Even if they become successful, they will always find someone more successful. Comparison creates a race with no finish line, and eventually exhaustion becomes inevitable. The traveler lowered his eyes, because he had spent years doing exactly that. The teacher then touched the third stone. His expression softened. Past wounds. The traveler felt his chest tighten. The teacher continued carefully. Many people are not seeing themselves as they are. They are seeing themselves through old pain. Now listen carefully. This may be the deepest crack of all. A harsh criticism received years ago. A rejection. A betrayal. A failure. An embarrassment. An injustice. These experiences often leave invisible marks. And without realizing it, people begin using those experiences as evidence about who they are. The teacher looked directly at the traveler. A single failure becomes, I am a failure. A single rejection becomes, I am unworthy. A single mistake becomes, I am not enough. The traveler suddenly understood. The event had ended years ago, but the interpretation remained, and the interpretation had become part of the mirror. The teacher stood and looked toward the horizon. The tragedy is not that bad things happen. The tragedy is when people allow those moments to define them forever. The wind moved through the trees. For several moments, neither spoke. Then the teacher turned. There is something even more dangerous than these 3 cracks. The traveler looked up. What could possibly be worse? The teacher's eyes narrowed. The moment a person begins protecting the distortion. The traveler frowned. He didn't understand, but he would soon, because the next lesson would reveal why many people fight to keep their broken mirrors, even when those mirrors are causing their suffering. And according to ancient wisdom, that may be the most dangerous trap of all. The traveler stared at the teacher. He could not understand. Why would anyone protect a broken mirror? Why would anyone defend the very thing causing their suffering? The teacher seemed to sense his confusion. Without saying a word, he picked up a worn leather rope lying beside the path. Then he tied it loosely around a young tree. "What do you see?" he asked. "A rope around a tree." The teacher nodded. "Now imagine this rope remains here for years." The traveler thought for a moment. The tree would grow around it. "Exactly." The teacher smiled. "And eventually, the tree would begin treating the rope as part of itself." The traveler became silent because he sensed where this lesson was heading. The teacher continued. "Many beliefs begin as experiences, but after enough time, they become identities. Now listen carefully. Ancient wisdom warned that the most dangerous lies are not the lies people hear. They're the lies people adopt. Because once a false belief becomes part of a person's identity, they stop questioning it. They start defending it." The teacher then told a story. There was once a man who had failed in business. Not once, but several times. After years of disappointment, he began telling himself a story. "I am unlucky." At first, it was merely an explanation, but eventually it became a belief. Then it became an identity. Years later, opportunities appeared before him. Good opportunities, profitable opportunities, life-changing opportunities. But he ignored them, not because they were bad, but because accepting them would require him to question his identity. The traveler frowned. The teacher nodded. "You see, it is easier for many people to protect an old story than to create a new one." The traveler felt something uncomfortable inside him because he recognized this pattern in himself. How often had he described himself using old disappointments? How often had he introduced himself through his failures rather than his possibilities? The teacher continued walking. The human mind craves certainty, even painful certainty. Think about that. A person may secretly prefer a familiar prison over an unfamiliar freedom, because at least a prison feels predictable. The teacher then stopped beside a stream. The water flowed effortlessly around rocks. He pointed toward it. Water survives because it adapts. But many people suffer because they refuse to. The traveler watched the stream carefully. The teacher continued. Some people spend years saying, "I am not smart enough. I am not attractive enough. I am too old. I am too damaged. I always fail." The problem is not merely the thought. The problem is that they begin treating the thought as truth. The broken mirror becomes their reality. The distortion becomes their identity. The traveler suddenly remembered dozens of moments from his own life. Moments when he had limited himself. Moments when he had abandoned opportunities. Moments when he had believed the voice in his head without questioning it. The teacher looked directly at him. "Never forget this. A thought repeated often enough can begin to look like truth." The traveler nodded slowly. Then the teacher revealed something that sent a chill through him. The world often treats you according to the identity you believe. Silence, because the implication was enormous. If a person sees themselves as powerless, they act powerless. If they see themselves as incapable, they avoid challenges. If they see themselves as unworthy, they reject opportunities. The broken mirror shapes behavior, and behavior shapes outcomes. The traveler felt the pieces beginning to come together. The teacher then gave one final warning. There is one mirror more dangerous than all the others. The traveler looked up. "What mirror is that?" The teacher's expression became serious. "The mirror created by other people's opinions." The traveler froze, because deep down, he already knew how much power he had given to that mirror. And the final lesson would reveal why ancient wisdom considered it one of the greatest dangers a person could face. The sun was beginning to set. Golden light covered the valley. The traveler and the teacher stood overlooking the village below. For a long time, neither spoke. Finally, the teacher turned and asked, "Who told you who you are?" The question seemed simple, yet the traveler struggled to answer. The teacher continued, "Think carefully. Who gave you your idea of yourself?" The traveler thought about childhood, teachers, friends, family, critics, strangers, failures, successes. The teacher nodded. "Most people spend their lives looking into mirrors built by others." Now listen carefully. Ancient wisdom taught that one of the greatest dangers in life is allowing other people's opinions to become your identity, because people see only fragments, never the whole picture. A critic sees one mistake, a rival sees one weakness, a stranger sees one moment. Yet, somehow people allow these fragments to define them. The teacher picked up a small shard of broken glass. He held it toward the traveler. "What do you see?" "Only part of my reflection." "Exactly." Then the teacher smiled. And yet many people build their entire self-image from fragments. One criticism, one rejection, one failure, one embarrassing moment, one painful experience. The traveler felt his chest tighten, because he knew exactly what the teacher meant. For years, he had carried opinions that were never truly his. He had allowed temporary moments to become permanent labels. The teacher continued, "The goal is not to make every mirror perfect. The goal is to know which mirrors deserve your attention." Those words felt liberating, because perhaps the answer was not endless self-improvement. Perhaps the answer was clearer vision. The teacher then pointed toward the horizon. When a traveler becomes lost, what does he need? A map. The teacher nodded. And when a person becomes lost in distorted self-perception, the traveler finally understood. They need truth. The teacher smiled. For the first time, a genuine smile. Exactly. Truth, not fear, not comparison, not old wounds, not criticism, not approval. Truth. Ancient wisdom teaches that peace begins when a person sees themselves clearly, not as perfect, not as flawless, but as they truly are, capable of growth, capable of mistakes, capable of learning, capable of becoming more. The traveler looked toward the village. Everything appeared different now, not because the world had changed, but because his perception had. The teacher then delivered his final lesson. Broken mirrors create broken conclusions, but clear vision creates freedom. The traveler closed his eyes, and for the first time in many years, he stopped measuring himself, stopped comparing himself, stopped chasing approval, stopped carrying old labels, because he finally understood something powerful. The greatest prison had never been outside him. It had been the distorted image he carried within, and the key had always been available. The courage to question the mirror, the courage to seek truth, the courage to see himself clearly. Perhaps that is why ancient wisdom warned so strongly about broken mirrors, not because they distort the face, but because they distort the soul. And when the soul is distorted, a person can spend an entire lifetime chasing what was never missing. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs this wisdom today. Because sometimes the most important thing you can break is the mirror that has been lying to you all along.